Violently gasps for air, clawing at phantom hands around her throat as she snaps awake in the pitch-black darkness. The nightmare is always the same, but the reality she wakes up to is worse. She hasn't slept properly in 3 days. The walls reek of stale whiskey, sour sweat, and old blood. Downstairs, someone is screaming. Outside in the freezing mud, a dead man is slowly being buried by the morning snow. The 1870s frontier wasn't a grand adventure. It was an industrial meat grinder. And for the women who worked the saloons, there was no glamour, only a brutal 24-hour cycle of violence, exhaustion, disease, and absolute terror. They were the invisible, disposable fuel that kept these boom towns running. This is the story of one saloon girl, one day. 24 hours of sheer, unfiltered survival. Before step into the mud. Just a quick reminder that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you end up enjoying this video and want to uncover more lost history, consider subscribing. It's free, and you could always change your mind. The wake up and the trap. It is 11 a.m. There is no warmth to greet her. The fire in the cast iron stove died hours ago, and the temperature in her tiny, uninsulated room has plummeted well below freezing. The walls of this place were built fast with green, unseasoned wood. As the wood dried in the harsh mountain air, it shrank, leaving gaps wide enough for the biting winter wind to whistle right through to her bones. Snow dusts the floorboards near the cracks, forming small, icy drifts at the foot of her bed. The iron nails in the wall are coated in thick, white frost from her own frozen breath. She pulls a thin, lice-ridden wool blanket up to her chin. Her bed is a wooden cot. Her mattress is a rough sack stuffed with corn husks that crackles loudly every time she shifts her bruised body. She is 19 years old. When she looks in the mirror, she sees a woman of 30. Her eyes are hollow, ringed with deep, purplish shadows. Her skin is sallow from a lack of sunlight and proper nutrition. You might wonder how she got here. You might think she chose this life, a rebellious spirit seeking freedom from Victorian constraints. The truth is, the frontier was a trap, and she walked right into its steel jaws. She came from a tenant farm in Ohio. Her little brother used to cry whenever thunderstorms rolled over the fields. She would sit beside him near the window and count the seconds between lightning and thunder until he fell asleep. Some nights in the saloon, when the gunshots start downstairs, she still counts without realizing it. Her family was starving. Her father drank what little they earned, and his fists were heavy. When she was 16, she saw an advertisement in a local paper, paid for by a mining company. They were looking for respectable young women to work as waitresses and seamstresses in the West. They promised high wages, good housing, and a chance to meet a wealthy, respectable husband. They even paid for her train ticket, sending a sharply dressed agent to escort her. It was a lie. A carefully orchestrated, systematic lie used to import women into the mining camps to prevent the men from rioting. When she stepped off the stagecoach after 3 weeks of bone-rattling travel, her lungs choked with alkali dust, there was no sewing job. There was no boarding house. There was only Mr. Silas, the saloon owner, holding her train ticket. He told her she owed him $50 for the fare, a fortune she could never hope to pay back without working his floor. She sits up, and the immediate reality of her existence hits her in a wave of stomach-churning nausea. Her head throbs violently from the cheap, watered-down whiskey she was forced to drink the night before. Her feet are covered in weeping blisters and dried blood from 12 hours of dancing in stiff, ill-fitting shoes. Her toes are permanently curled and deformed from the narrow toe boxes. She looks at the wash basin in the corner. The water inside is frozen solid. There is no glamorous morning routine here. There is no privacy. Through the thin boards, she can hear the girl in the room next to hers violently coughing. A wet, rattling, tearing sound that leaves bright pink spots of blood on a handkerchief. Tuberculosis. Consumption. The White Plague. It is tearing through this camp like a wildfire. You hear it in every saloon, a chorus of dying lungs. She knows, with a quiet, creeping dread, that she will likely catch it soon. They share everything, cups, corsets, diseases, and despair. But she has to get dressed. If she is late downstairs, the house madam or the saloon owner will dock her pay. And in this town, losing a day's pay means she doesn't eat. If you think surviving 24 hours in this town sounds like absolute hell, drop the word hell in the comments below. The morning filth and quack medicine. She steps out of her room into the hallway. The stench hits her instantly, heavy and physical. It is a living thing, this smell. The history books always omit the smell of the West. It is, without exaggeration, suffocating. There is no plumbing. There are no sewers. She picks up her chamber pot, carries it downstairs and out the back door, and throws its contents directly into the alleyway, right next to where the stray dogs are tearing at the frozen carcass of a mule. The main street of this town isn't made of dirt. It is a thick, churning slurry of mud, horse manure, rotting food, butchered animal offal, and human waste. When it rains, the street becomes a river of sewage, floating with the bloated corpses of rats and feral cats. In the summer, it bakes into a rancid dust that coats the back of the throat and causes dysentery. In the winter, it freezes into treacherous, jagged ruts that break the ankles of horses and men alike. Her skin crawls. She craves a bath, but drawing a hot bath is a luxury reserved for the wealthy mine owners and the politicians. Every drop of water in this town is hauled in from a creek a mile away and sold by the bucket for exorbitant prices. The wood required to heat that water is even more expensive, as the surrounding hills have been stripped bare of trees to shore up the mine shafts. If she is incredibly lucky, she might get to wipe her body with a damp, freezing rag once a week. She scrubs the grease from her face, splashing freezing water over her eyes to force herself awake. Then, the horrific ritual of frontier beauty begins. She applies a thick layer of lead-based powder to her skin. She knows this toxic makeup is slowly poisoning her blood. She has seen the older girls whose gums have turned blue, whose hair falls out in clumps, whose hands shake so badly they can't hold a glass. Lead poisoning. But it is necessary to hide the dark circles under her eyes and the fading yellow bruises on her cheek where a miner struck her 3 days ago. She pinches her cheeks to bring blood to them and drops a small amount of belladonna into her eyes. It dilates her pupils, making her look wide-eyed and innocent, but it blurs her vision and gives her a splitting headache. Sometimes, the girls eat arsenic wafers to give their skin a pale, translucent glow, slowly killing their internal organs for the sake of looking delicate. Before she laces her corset, she takes her medicine. Not real medicine. There are no real doctors here. The town doctor is a drunken butcher who operates with unwashed saws and dirty, blood-stained rags, leaving his patients to die of gangrene. Instead, the women rely on patent medicines sold by traveling peddlers. She takes a spoonful of a dark syrup meant to cure female complaints. It is mostly grain alcohol laced with mercury, arsenic, and morphine. It burns her throat, but it numbs the sharp cramps in her stomach. She pulls her corset tight, crushing her ribs, pushing her organs downward until it is difficult to take a full breath. She must fit into the brightly colored, cheap silk dress provided by the saloon. It is stiff with old sweat and stained at the hem with mud and someone else's blood. The dress belongs to the owner. The bed belongs to the owner. The medicine belongs to the owner. She belongs to the owner. What happens when a person's entire existence is owned by the very place that is slowly killing them? The afternoon lull and the washing. It is 12 p.m. Before the doors open to the public, the grueling domestic labor of the saloon must be done. The myth is that these women lounged around until evening, sipping tea and adjusting their feathers. The reality is brutal, back-breaking labor. The saloon generates massive amounts of filth, and the girls are required to clean it. Galley, where a massive iron cauldron is boiling over a wood fire. Her job today is to wash the linens from the upstairs cribs. The sheets are stiff, reeking of sweat, unwashed bodies, and biological fluids. She plunges her bare, freezing hands into the boiling water, using harsh lye soap to scrub the fabric against a ridged washboard. The lye eats at her skin, cracking her knuckles until they bleed freely into the soapy water. Steam rises slowly from the boiling water. It smells like a slaughterhouse. The house madam, an older, hardened woman named Pearl, oversees the work. Pearl was once a girl just like her, but she survived by trading her empathy for cruelty. Pearl enforces the rules with a wooden cane. If a sheet isn't scrubbed entirely white, Pearl strikes the girl across the shoulders. Pearl collects a percentage of everything the girls make, and in return, she decides who gets the good clients and who is thrown to the roughest, most violent men. Pearl is not a mother figure, she is a prison guard. After an hour of scrubbing, the girl's hands are raw meat. She hangs the heavy wet sheets over a rope line, her fingers going numb in the freezing air. There's no time to rest. The ledger of bone and blood. It is 1:30 p.m. She is back inside to check the ledger. The saloon doors are still locked. The floor is sticky. Her boots stick to a horrific paste of spilled beer, chewing tobacco spit, and the congealed blood from last night's stabbing. Her next job is to sweep a fresh layer of sawdust over the worst of the stains to hide them. The sawdust smells like pine and vomit. Mr. Silas, the saloon owner, is sitting behind the bar. He is a heavy-set man with a permanent scowl, a thick mustache stained yellow with nicotine, and a loaded Colt revolver tucked into his waistband. He watches her sweep. He is not her friend. He is her warden, the architect of her misery. She walks to the end of the bar where the heavy leather-bound ledger sits. This book is the true law of the frontier. Not the sheriff, not the judge, the ledger. She opens it to her page, and a cold weight drops in her chest. The heavy black ink reads $145. Yesterday it was $142. She had worked 14 agonizing hours, hustled 20 drinks, and suffered through going upstairs twice. Yet somehow the number still went up. Scanning the ledger, Mr. Silas's neat, cruel handwriting spells out the inescapable trap. $3 for her freezing room and board, $1 to replace a glass shattered by a drunken client, 50 cents for harsh laundry soap, 50 cents in daily interest, and a humiliating $1 fine simply for complaining of illness. The numbers never go down. They were never supposed to. No matter how many hours she works, no matter what she subjects herself to, the ledger always shows that she owes him money. If a man rips her dress, she is charged for the repair. If a man breaks a chair while fighting over her, she is charged for the chair. If she is too sick to work, she is fined for lost revenue. She is forced to buy all her necessities. Soap, hairpins, stockings directly from Mr. Silas at a 500% markup. She cannot leave until the debt is paid. If she tries to run, Mr. Silas will send the sheriff after her. The sheriff is on his payroll. He will drag her back by her hair, throw her in a cell for theft of services, and Mr. Silas will add the sheriff's fee to her ledger. The system is designed so the debt is never, ever paid. She is trapped in a cage made of paper and ink. The saloon opens. It is 2 p.m. The bartender, a scarred man named Dutch who lost half his ear in a knife fight in Abilene, begins pouring rot-gut whiskey into the display bottles. Real whiskey is rare and expensive. What Dutch pours is a vile, toxic concoction he mixes in the back alley. He takes a single gallon of cheap, raw grain alcohol and stretches it into 5 gallons of whiskey. He uses chewing tobacco spit or burnt sugar for the amber color. He adds red pepper or raw ammonia to give it a burning kick, going down the throat. Sometimes he throws in a handful of raw gunpowder or a dash of strychnine. They call it tarantula juice, coffin varnish, or snakehead. It rots the stomach lining, destroys the liver, and drives men completely, violently insane. The sun begins to set. The shadows in the saloon lengthen, stretching across the sawdust like grasping fingers. The air grows cold, the breath visible in the dim light of the kerosene lamps. The piano player, a blind man who drinks to forget whatever he saw before he lost his eyes, begins to strike the keys. It is a frantic, off-key ragtime tune that grates against her throbbing headache. Her stomach tightens into a hard, painful knot. For a brief moment, the saloon is almost peaceful. Sarah is sitting on the piano with her shoes kicked off, rubbing her swollen feet. Clara is laughing weakly at one of Dutch's terrible jokes. Even the blind piano player is quietly humming to himself while polishing the yellowed keys. It lasts maybe 15 seconds. Then the front doors explode open. The men are coming. The anatomy of a frontier man. They pour in. The doors don't stop swinging for an hour. They come from the deep gold claims, where they spend 12 hours a day swinging pickaxes in absolute darkness, breathing rock dust until their lungs bleed. They come from the cattle trails, having spent 3 months eating nothing but beans and driving cattle through blinding dust storms. They come from the railroad camps, where men die every day from dynamite explosions and cholera. There are the buffalo hunters, who carry the absolute worst stench of all. They spend months on the plains skinning massive carcasses. The smell of rotting blood, fat, and decay is permanently baked into their heavy hide coats. When they walk into the saloon, the smell is so thick it makes the girls gag. They do not look like dashing heroes. They are rough, feral, broken men. They have not seen a woman, a bed, or a bar of soap in 6 months. Their clothes are stiff with animal grease, human sweat, and dried mud. Many suffer from severe scurvy, their breath smelling of rotting gums and decaying teeth. They are infested with body lice, fleas, and bed bugs. They carry diseases that have no cure, and every single one of them is heavily, aggressively armed. Hunting knives tucked into their boots, heavy Colt revolvers sitting low on their hips, Winchester rifles slung over their broad shoulders. The atmosphere in the room shifts instantly from quiet preparation to an explosive, suffocating tension. The noise becomes deafening, shouting, cursing, the clatter of heavy clay poker chips, the tinny, frantic banging of the piano. Her job begins. She is a percentage girl. Her survival depends entirely on making these men buy drinks. She forces herself to approach a table of unwashed buffalo hunters. The smell of rotting hides hits her like a physical blow. She pastes a wide, hollow smile on her face. She laughs at crude, violent jokes she cannot even hear over the din. She lets a massive man with a jagged scar across his face and half his teeth missing pull her onto his lap. She ignores the smell of rancid sweat and unbrushed teeth inches from her face. His calloused, filthy hands, stained black with dried animal blood, grope her waist. He pinches her skin brutally through the corset, leaving deep purple bruises she will have to cover with powder tomorrow. She must pretend she enjoys it. She must flutter her eyelashes, run her fingers through his greasy hair, and beg him for a drink. Every time he buys a drink for her, Dutch serves her cold black tea colored to look like whiskey, while charging the hunter the full, exorbitant price for top-shelf liquor. Dutch slips her a small wooden token for every drink sold. At the end of the night, she will trade these tokens for 10 cents each, but she has to be incredibly, terrifyingly careful. These men are paranoid and quick to anger. If this hunter realizes he is paying whiskey prices for cold tea, his violent rage will not be directed at Dutch behind the bar. It will be directed at her. He will view it as a personal insult, a theft of his hard-earned silver. She has seen girls beaten unconscious with the butt of a revolver for a watered-down drink. Imagine your entire existence being owned by a saloon's ledger. How long could you last? Tell me in the comments. The Sisterhood of the Damned. She catches the eye of Sarah across the room. Sarah is 22, but her hair is already streaked with gray. She is working a table of Texas cowboys. Like most of the girls, Sarah is running from something: an abusive husband in New York, a dead-end factory job in Lowell, or a family that threw her out. They are a collection of castaways. The girls don't have friends here. True friendship is a vulnerability that can be exploited by the madam. But they have a trauma bond, a sisterhood built purely on survival. They communicate in a silent language of micro-expressions across the smoky room. A tightened jaw means this man has a knife hidden in his sleeve. A widened eye means he is getting too drunk. Come interrupt before he hits me. A hand placed flat on the table means help. She sees the cowboy next to Sarah slide his hand roughly up her thigh, his fingers digging in with clear intent to hurt. Sarah smiles, but her eyes meet the girl's wide and terrified. The cowboy's other hand is resting menacingly on the grip of his pistol. The girl smoothly extricates herself from the hunter's lap, promising she'll be right back with a bottle. She walks over to Sarah's table, swaying her hips, projecting an air of drunken joy she absolutely does not feel. Her heart is hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Sarah, honey," she yells over the piano, wrapping her arms around the other girl's neck and deliberately spilling a tiny bit of her tea onto the cowboy's dusty boots. "Mr. Silas needs you in the back to check the liquor delivery right now." The cowboy glares at her, his hand tightening on the butt of his pistol. His eyes are dead, black pits of aggression. "She ain't going nowhere," he slurs, his breath smelling of onions and rot gut. She smiles wider, fighting the urge to run. "I'll take her place, handsome." "Dutch, bring this fine gentleman a bottle of the good stuff in the house." The mention of free liquor distracts him just long enough. His grip loosens. Sarah slips away, running to the back room, her hand shaking. The girl takes her seat, absorbing the cowboys' vile stench and aggressive groping. She has just traded her safety for Sarah's. Tomorrow, Sarah will have to do the same for her. This is the only way they survive. The law of the frontier. At 8 p.m., the swinging doors part and the town sheriff walks in. He is a tall man with a silver star pinned to his canvas duster. In the stories, the lawman is a beacon of hope, a protector of the weak. In reality, the law on the frontier is purchased by the highest bidder. The sheriff walks straight past a group of miners openly beating a man in the corner. He approaches the bar. Mr. Silas slides a shot glass of genuine Kentucky bourbon and a small stack of silver coins across the mahogany. The sheriff pockets the coins without a word. The sheriff's presence doesn't make the girls feel safe. It makes them feel utterly hopeless. He is the ultimate enforcer of Mr. Silas's ledger. If a girl tries to sneak out on the midnight stagecoach, it is the sheriff who rides down the coach, hauls her out by her hair, and drags her back to the saloon. The sheriff scans the room, his eyes lingering lazily over the girls. He points a thick, leather-gloved finger at a young girl named Mary Ann, who is barely 17. Violence after dark. It is 9 p.m. The tarantula juice has taken root in their blood. The room is a powder keg, and the fuse is burning fast. The air is thick with blue cigar smoke and the heavy smell of unwashed wool. Violence out here is not honorable. It is not cinematic. There are no high noon standoffs where two men draw their weapons fairly in the street while a clock ticks. Frontier violence is sudden, chaotic, cowardly, and intimately brutal. It happens in the dark, in cramped spaces, over completely trivial matters. Frontier violence rarely arrived with warning. Most of the time, it arrived in the middle of a sentence. A dispute erupts at a faro table near the back wall. A miner, his face black with coal dust, accuses a professional gambler, a man with slicked hair and a silver derringer hidden up his sleeve, of dealing from the bottom of the deck. There is no dramatic pause. There is no warning. No one calls anyone out to the street to settle it like men. The miner simply grabs a heavy, square-bottomed glass bottle and smashes it with full force across the gambler's skull. The sickening crunch of bone is audible even over the shouting. The gambler's eye bursts from the impact. Instantly, the crowd surges, not away from the violence, but toward it. A friend of the gambler draws a long hunting knife, lunging forward and burying it to the hilt in the miner's stomach. He violently twists the blade upward. The miner screams, a high, wet, horrific sound that cuts through the saloon. They crash to the floor, rolling in the sawdust, slipping in blood and spilled beer, tearing at each other's faces with their teeth like rabid dogs. The girl does what she has learned to do to survive. She drops to the floor. She presses herself tight against the brass rail of the bar, making herself as small as humanly possible, covering her head with her arms, praying to a god she no longer believes in. A gunshot rings out, deafening, concussive in the enclosed space. Then another, and another. A stray bullet shatters the mirror behind the bar, raining sharp shards of glass down onto her back. The smoke from the black powder immediately clouds the air, burning her eyes and scorching the back of her throat with the acrid smell of sulfur. When the screaming finally stops, two men are dead on the floor. Their blood pools into the sawdust she swept just hours ago, turning it into a thick, sticky red paste. Mr. Silas steps casually over the bodies. He doesn't look shocked. He looks annoyed at the interruption of commerce. He grabs the dead miner by the boots, drags him out the back door, and heaves him into the freezing mud. He comes back for the gambler, leaving a wide smear of blood across the floorboards. He turns to Dutch, wiping a speck of brain matter from his vest with a silk handkerchief. "Keep pouring," he barks. The piano starts again. The blind man plays faster. The men go back to their drinks as if nothing happened. They literally step over the bloodstains to get to the bar. Two men are dead, sent to eternity over a $2 bet, and her night has barely begun. The hidden business of the saloon. By 11 p.m., the polite facade of the dance hall girl violently strips away. History books try to draw a polite, definitive line between saloon girls and prostitutes. They want to believe that some of these women just danced, just poured drinks, and maintained their virtue. The reality is that on the frontier, that line does not exist. Economic desperation erased it long before she ever arrived. Hunger makes a person do things they swore to their mother they never would. She has hustled drinks for 5 hours. She has danced until her feet are completely numb, her toes bleeding freely inside her stockings. She has earned perhaps $1.50. It is nowhere near enough to pay down her daily debt to Mr. Silas. A miner with a fistful of silver dollars, heavy, rough chunks of unminted silver straight from the assayer's office, grabs her wrist. His hands are like coarse sandpaper. His grip is like an iron vise, bruising her skin immediately. He pulls her toward the narrow, rickety staircase leading to the cribs on the second floor. She looks at Mr. Silas at the bar. She silently begs him with her eyes. He meets her gaze and nods once, tapping the ledger. She does not have a choice. If she refuses, she will be thrown out into the snow to freeze to death. Or worse, Mr. Silas will drag her into the back room and beat her with a heavy leather strap until she complies. The upstairs rooms are terrifying. They're the size of a closet, partitioned by thin canvas walls or cheap pine boards. You can hear everything happening in the rooms next to you, the grunts, the weeping, the creaking of the springs. There is a narrow cot, a single candle, no heat, no window. The air is stagnant, smelling of old sweat, cheap perfume, and semen. The door doesn't even have a lock, just a leather strap to keep it closed. There are no police she can call. The sheriff has already taken his fill and left. If this man beats her, if he decides to choke her for his own sick pleasure, if he decides to take his silver back after he is finished with her, she has absolutely no legal recourse. To the lawman of the frontier, she is not a citizen. She is property. She is a disposable commodity meant to be used up and thrown into a ditch. She walks into the dark, freezing room. She lies back on the freezing cot. She closes her eyes. She detaches her mind entirely from her body. It is the only way to survive the crushing, suffocating weight of the trauma. She lets her vision go dark. She lets her skin go numb. She retreats deep into a tiny, locked corner of her brain. She thinks of the green hills of Ohio. She thinks of the sound of rain on a tin roof. She thinks of the smell of fresh baked bread. She goes somewhere else entirely while a filthy, violent stranger uses her body in the dark, grunting like an animal. How long can a human soul endure this before it shatters completely, before there is nothing left inside but dust and echoes? The terror of the flesh. When he is finished, he pulls up his trousers, tosses a coin on the floor, and leaves without a word. She lies in the dark for a moment, shivering violently, feeling profoundly hollowed out. The physical act is horrifying, but the lingering terror is what truly breaks them. These women live in constant, paralyzing fear of two things: disease and pregnancy. There is no reliable birth control. They rely on desperate, agonizing methods. They use sponges soaked in vinegar or alum, or worse, carbolic acid, which burns the sensitive tissue inside them and leaves them horribly scarred. If a girl gets pregnant, her life is effectively over. Mr. Silas will immediately throw her out into the street. A pregnant girl cannot hustle drinks. She is a liability. If she finds herself with a child, she has only horrific options. She goes to a midwife in the shantytown who will use a dirty metal hook or a knitting needle on a filthy wooden table for $5. Half the girls who try this die of sepsis within a week, burning up with fever, screaming in agony as their organs rot inside them. The other half poison themselves by drinking turpentine or toxic pennyroyal tea until they hemorrhage, hoping to flush the child out. And if she avoids the child, she cannot avoid the pox, syphilis, the silent, lurking killer of the frontier. She inspects every man as best she can in the dim candlelight, looking for sores or rashes, but it is impossible to know. Men hide it. Once she has it, it is an agonizing death sentence. It will lie dormant for years, then slowly eat away her brain, collapsing the bridge of her nose, covering her body in weeping pustules until she is left raving mad, locked in a county asylum, rotting while she is still alive. Every single time she walks up those stairs, she is playing Russian roulette with her life. Drunken paranoia and gunfights. It is 1 a.m. The atmosphere in the saloon has crossed the line from rowdy to lethal. The men are twitchy, hallucinating from the toxic tarantula juice, jumping at the shadows cast by the kerosene lamps. A single drop glass makes a dozen hands drop instinctively to the walnut grips of heavy Colt revolvers. Then the violence comes from the outside. Without warning, the louvered doors shatter inward. Three massive Mustangs are ridden straight off the boardwalk and directly into the saloon. A group of Texas cowboys, flush with cash and high on aggression, have decided to tree the town. The horses scream, their eyes rolling back, terrified by the blinding smoke and the booming pine floorboards. The cowboys laugh like demons, firing their .45s indiscriminately into the ceiling. The noise is concussive. Plaster, jagged splinters of wood, and hot chunks of lead rain down on the crowd. She reacts on pure instinct, scrambling behind an overturned oak poker table and dragging Sarah down with her. But she knows the terrifying truth. A bullet from a black powder revolver will punch straight through an oak table and 3 pine walls. The cover is just an illusion. Nowhere is safe. Earlier that night, Clara had been talking about buying a blue dress from Denver once she saved enough money. She kept describing the color over and over because she had never owned anything new in her life. Through the sulfur smoke, she sees Clara, 16 years old, 1,000 miles from Ohio. Clara is frozen by the stairs, clutching a tin tray. A bullet ricochets off an iron stovepipe. With a wet, sickening thwack, the flattened lead tears through Clara's collarbone. The bullet hits with such force it folds her body backward like wet paper. She hits the floor with the dead weight of a dropped doll, her bright arterial blood instantly turning the sawdust, a slick, oily black. Thinking she simply fainted from the noise, the cowboys spur their horses back out into the freezing night, shooting out the imported windows for the thrill of the shatter. The girl doesn't wait. She crawls to Clara on her hands and knees through spilled beer, spit, and broken glass. She presses her bare hands against a jagged wound. The blood is impossibly hot, pumping rapidly through her fingers, soaking her ruined silk dress and sticking her corset to her skin. Clara's chest heaves in shallow jerks, her face turning chalk white. "Dutch, help me!" she screams over the ringing in her ears. Behind the bar, Dutch casually brushes plaster off his sleeve. He looks down with dead, empty eyes. "Drag her to the kitchen," he says flatly. "Don't bleed on the felt tables. Silas will dock your pay. There is no hospital here. There is no surgeon coming. If the blood loss doesn't kill Clara tonight, the infection will rot her from the inside out by next week." They drag the dying teenager to the freezing back room, leaving a wide smear of red across the floor. They pack the bullet hole with torn petticoats soaked in raw whiskey. Clara screams, burning with fever and crying out for a mother who will never know what happened to her. The girl sits in the dirt, stroking Clara's sweat-drenched hair for barely 10 minutes before the heavy wooden door kicks open. Mr. Silas stands in the lamplight. He looks at Clara bleeding onto the flour sacks, then glares at the girl. "Get up," he snarls, tapping his pocket watch. "Get back out there. You're losing me money." The midnight hours, in the black bottle. It is 3 a.m. The sheer terror and adrenaline have finally faded, leaving a crushing, hollow exhaustion in her chest. The saloon is finally beginning to empty. The men who have passed out are dragged to the corners like sacks of grain, or thrown roughly out into the freezing street by Dutch to sleep in the mud. A few die of exposure out there, freezing to death in their sleep, their bodies found stiff as boards in the morning. Her entire body aches with a profound, bone-deep agony. Her feet are bleeding freely inside her boots. Her ribs ache horribly from the corset restricting her breathing for 14 hours. Her soul feels like it has been dragged over broken glass. To cope with the physical pain and the horrific psychological weight of what she has just endured, she does what almost every other woman in this camp does. She seeks the only comfort available to her in this desolate wasteland. She retreats to the shadows near the back stairwell, out of sight of Mr. Silas. She reaches into a small pocket hidden deep in her skirt and pulls out a tiny glass vial, laudanum, a highly addictive, potent mixture of raw opium and alcohol. Her hands shake violently as she pulls the cork. If she goes too long without it, her bones feel like they are vibrating, her stomach cramps violently, and she breaks out in cold sweats. She places 4 thick drops under her tongue. The bitter, metallic chemical taste floods her mouth. She closes her eyes and leans her head against the rough wood, waiting. Minutes later, a heavy, artificial warmth spreads through her chest. It wraps around her brain like a thick velvet blanket. The screaming pain in her bleeding feet dulls to a distant, manageable throb. The horrific memories of the man upstairs, the sight of Clara's blood, the sound of the skull cracking, they all fade into a blurry, muted, sepia-toned gray. In the future, polite society will call these women sinners. Temperance leagues will write scathing articles about the fallen women of the West. They won't understand that drug addiction and severe alcoholism are rampant among them because it is their only escape hatch from hell. It isn't a moral failing, it is a desperate form of self-medication. She uses it to forget the violence. She uses it to forget the suffocating smell. She uses it to endure the unbearable reality that she is trapped here until she dies. Some girls use Chinese opium dens, smoking the pipe until they simply waste away into nothing. She takes another drop from the vial, just to be sure the pain stays away until sunrise. The terrifying reality of aging out and the disposal. It is 4:30 a.m. The saloon is finally quiet, save for the wet, rattling snoring of the drunks in the corners. The bartender orders her out the back door to empty the heavy brass spittoons. She carries the foul-smelling buckets, overflowing with black tobacco juice and blood, out into the alley. The freezing air burns her lungs like shattered glass. The stars are hard, distant, and cold above the mining camp. Huddled against the back wall of the saloon, shivering violently under a rotting, lice-ridden burlap sack, is Crazy Mary. Mary used to be the most sought-after girl in this saloon. She had bright blonde hair, flawless skin, and a laugh that made men empty their pockets. She made Mr. Silas thousands of dollars. But then she caught the pox. Her teeth turned black and fell out. Her skin turned a sickly, ashen gray, covered in weeping sores. The disease reached her brain, and she started hearing voices. She lost her youth. Mary is 26 years old. In the brutal economy of the Old West, beauty and youth are the only currency a woman has. The exact moment it fades, the moment a girl becomes visibly sick, pregnant, or simply too exhausted to force a smile, she will be discarded like a broken chair. There is no retirement for a saloon girl. There is no charity. There is no church that will take them in, for they are considered tainted. When they age out, they become hurdy-gurdy girls, dancing for pennies in the lowest, filthiest canvas dives at the edge of town. When they can no longer do that, they beg in the alleys. And when they die, there is no funeral. The town undertaker has a contract with Mr. Silas. When a girl dies, her body is stripped of anything valuable. She is wrapped in a cheap canvas tarp and thrown into the potter's field on the hill outside of town, a barren patch of rocky dirt where the graves are unmarked. No headstone, no prayer, just another body swallowed by the earth. The girl looks at Mary, freezing in the snow, coughing up black fluid onto her chin. Mary looks up with dead, milky, unfocused eyes.
Please,
She whispers, her voice a dry, rattling rasp.
just a drop, just a penny.
She is begging for laudanum. A cold wave of absolute terror washes over the girl, colder than the winter wind. She is looking at her own future. She is looking at a ghost. In 3, maybe 4 years, that will be her. Trapped in the frozen mud, waiting for the cold to finally stop her heart, destined for a canvas sack in an unmarked hole. She reaches into her pocket, pulls out the vial, and pours a few precious drops into Mary's trembling, blistered mouth. It is all she can give her. What happens when youth runs out and there is nowhere left to run? Final reflection. It is 6 a.m. The sun is clawing its way over the horizon, casting a pale, unforgiving, sickly gray light on the absolute devastation of the frontier town. The snow has stopped, leaving a fresh white blanket over the filth, a temporary, mocking illusion of purity. Mr. Silas finally locks the front doors, dropping a heavy iron bar across them with a loud, final clank. He sits at the bar, methodically counting piles of silver and gold coins under the dying light of a single kerosene lamp. The clinking of the coins is the only sound in the room. He does not look at the girl. He doesn't even acknowledge she is in the room. She is a piece of equipment that has finished its shift, put away until it is needed again. She takes a heavy wooden bucket of freezing, dirty water and drops to her bare knees. She begins to scrub the blood, the mud, and the vomit off the floorboards with a stiff wire brush. Her hands are cracked, red, and bleeding, the harsh lye soap stinging the open cuts like fire. The laudanum is wearing off, and the physical pain is returning to her body with a vicious, screaming vengeance. Every muscle spasms. She finishes her chores. The floor is clean enough for the next wave of destruction. She walks slowly back up the narrow, creaking stairs. Her muscles scream in protest with every single step. Her joints pop. She enters her freezing, uninsulated room. The water in the basin is still frozen solid. Clara's room is absolutely silent next door. She does not know if the young girl is asleep, unconscious, or dead, and she is too terrified to open the door and check. She does not even have the energy to untie the laces of her corset. She collapses entirely onto the hard, crackling corn husk mattress, still wearing the ruined, blood-stained silk dress. She pulls the thin, filthy blanket over her shivering shoulders. She closes her eyes, praying for sleep, praying for just a few hours of dark, dreamless nothingness before the cycle begins again. The cold seeps into her bones, making her teeth chatter. Downstairs, she can hear Dutch sweeping up the broken glass, the sound of the frontier grinding away at human lives. In 5 hours, the sun will be high. The men will wake up in their camps. They will strap on their guns. They will come back. The saloon doors will open. The truth is written in the unmarked, shallow graves of thousands of women whose names were erased from history. Women who were chewed up and spat out by a brutal, unforgiving machine of expansion, lust, and unchecked corporate greed. They built the frontier with their bodies, their sanity, and their blood, and history has rewarded them with nothing but cheap caricatures and Halloween costumes. There is no stoic hero riding into town to save her. There is no train ticket back east. There is no redemption waiting at the end of the dirt road. There is only the ledger. There is only the saloon. There is only the freezing mud. And there is only tomorrow. She has to sleep now. She has to do it all again.